Good morning. I'm Kim Morkway with Spinnaker Real Estate Partners. I'm the chair of the DSSD in Bridgeport as well, the Downtown Special Services District. I want to thank the Cultural Alliance and Stepping Stones for organizing today's program, and especially David Green for his tireless efforts on this program and many others. I just wanted to mention very quickly, and first of all, I have to say that I had not seen that full TED Talk before. That was terrific. And it kind of proves one of the things that I've felt for a long time, that actually real estate development is kind of a creative, artistic expression. So I guess that goes over well actually at a real estate conference, but not here, so. In any event, I did want to mention that we've worked with the Cultural Alliance on the Arts and Economic Prosperity study, and that was a collaboration with the Americans for the Arts, and that looked at the economic impact of not-for-profit arts and cultural organizations and their audiences, and that basically gives, I think, economic development planners the tools that they need to prove the case that arts and culture really are economic development tools in communities. So, and I wanted to just read one quote from that study, and that's from Robert Lynch, who's the president and CEO of the American for the Arts, and he's talking about the economic impact of arts and culture. We must always remember their fundamental value. They foster beauty, creativity, originality, and vitality. The arts inspire us, soothe us, provoke us, involve us, and connect us, but they also create jobs and contribute to the economy. So our panel this morning is entitled Artist Spaces and Their Impact on Community Life and Economic Development. We have a terrific set of artists as panelists this morning, and I'm going to briefly introduce them and tell you about the format, and then we'll get started. Jane Davila is with the Nest in Bridgeport, and Jane is the director of the Nest Art Factory, a printmaker, fiber and mixed media artist. He teaches art quilting across the United States and internationally, and has written several best-selling books on surface design and art quilting. Elisa is an artist originally from England and had a successful career in New York City as an art director in the music industry, and has her focus now on photography, and she's at Firing Circuits here in Norwalk. And finally, we have Mark McCready. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Mark. We didn't get a chance to talk. McCready, who is a RISD grad and serves as chair of the Visual Arts Department there, and has a process-oriented kindergarten art program and workshops that he teaches around the world, and currently serves as co-chair for the Stanford Loft Artists Association. So we didn't actually pick any order, but I'm going to go from right to left, and we'll start with Jane, if that's okay. Okay. Each presenter will have a brief presentation, and then we'll have a moderated discussion, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. Thank you.
Timer, we're ready to go. Okay. Okay, so my name is Jane Davila, and I am at the Nest Arts Factory. I'm the managing director of the Nest Arts Factory, and it's in Bridgeport. We are one of 4 different artist buildings in Bridgeport, and the building itself is an old factory. It was the second location. Our current location was our second location It has been around for 25 years this year. It started with one artist in a sock factory. Our executive director, Vic Malaire, had a sock company called Cricket Hosiery, and it turns out that my daughter, 30 years ago, used to wear socks from Cricket Hosiery, which is kind of fun thinking about it now. We have 36 artists in just over 30 spaces. The factory itself was built as a locomobile factory, which was a precursor of the cars. It used to make the bodies or the chassis of the cars, and we have a giant freight elevator because they would have to be able to get that up and down. And it became a lot of things over time, and it's like a lot of these old buildings, they get reactivated and reinvented on and on. And this one in particular made artillery shells during the war. It made aerosol cans. It made socks for a while. And now it hosts artists. We have the second floor of a 3-floor building in 2,500 square feet, 25,000 square feet, sorry, with lots of big spaces. Let's see, so one of the things that I started thinking about when David asked me to give this speech is how we impact the community, and community for us in the building means the community of artists that rent the spaces. It means the artists in our city, and it also means the community at large around us. So I was thinking about how we impact all of those things together, and so I started thinking first about how we impact our member artists. So some of the things that we do for our member artists is we have professional development. We do, for example, we do lunches together on Fridays. So we have community lunch. Anybody who's in the building and wants to stop can work and have lunch together. And we talk about things about how to leverage social media or give each other advice or pointers on our websites. We try to go to openings together. We try to do a lot of things together. It's not mandatory, of course, because we're artists and we all do our own thing, but we do try to support each other in that way. If somebody's running to the art supply store, they'll text everybody else and say, do you need anything? So there are those types of things. I myself run a mentoring group in the Nest, and I charge money for it because profit's not a 4-letter word. It's a good word. So I have a lot of opportunities for people to be mentored and to learn how to monetize their careers and to be able to do things like that. We have career opportunities. We have a lot of information that we give out to our members about different RFPs that are available for public art projects or calls for entry for different types of shows. We do a lot of networking and we share a lot of resources. So that's just within the 3 dozen of us. And then, whoops, oh. Okay, so then going from there, how do we impact our area artists? Because I think we have a responsibility to the greater art community to also share what we're all learning and we're all doing with each other. So some of the things that we started doing is we started a networking party and we invited every single artist in the city, and we had such a response. We had 250 people show up the first year. And the second year it snowed, so we didn't have quite as many. But the first year I had people calling from as far away as Stamford saying, well, they don't do anything like this around here. Can we come to yours? And I said, well, maybe the second year. The first year we're really trying to keep it to Bridgeport. But I really felt that it was important that the greater community, so the community within the city, had an opportunity to be able to form connections so that we could advocate for each other and so that we could help each other make those types of connections and make that type of community and share resources. And then we also have an impact on national artists because we have a gallery and we do juried shows and we do invitational shows. And so we have shows where we have people who enter from Germany and Singapore and California and Michigan, and we do a couple of those a year. And then we also do open studios. Now there's one giant one in our city called the Bridgeport Art Trail, which is led by City Lights Gallery, and we like to think we're a big part of that as well. Along with 40 other venues within our city, we get about 5,000 visitors through the city that weekend in November. And we decided we wanted to do more than that, so we do an additional 6 open studios just with our building, and we build a lot of events around that. So our impact on the community in that respect is that we also end up having musical performances, poetry performances, can't read, We do outreach to schools, again, usually facilitated through City Lights Gallery. We have a partnership with them. And so they bring individual artists into the schools to help the kids learn different things about music and art and different history projects and history of the city, history of the different cultures that live in the city. We do demonstrations by the member artists, sometimes at the farmers market, again with City Lights, art exhibitions where we show our work outside, but also art exhibitions where we invite artists to show in our gallery. We have a fundraising show once a year called the 10 by 10 exhibit, although we're changing it up this year. But we invite people to show, and unlike a traditional fundraiser, we split the profits with the artists who donate the work. So the artists get half and the Nest gets half, and we're able to continue on. And we're also working hard to improve our neighborhood. We have gardens outside of the Nest. We've worked and really been thoughtful about the entrance and what that looks like at the Nest. We also have a lot of musical performances, mostly around our open studios, but not always, also in conjunction with the Bridgeport Art Trail. A couple of our artists, Ricardo Reyes and John Torres, are both like musical curators, and will do different types of performances around the city and also bring in other musicians around the city to different venues. They play at the Reed's Art Space during the art trail. Rick Reyes this year did a really cool thing where he got his bandmates and they traveled from studio to studio like wandering minstrels. And just the four of them set up and they played 2 or 3 songs in a studio and then they went to the next one. And people were following them around the building. And it was unbelievable. The acoustics were cool. The whole thing was just cool. And people were so happy that they saw this very unusual type of event. It was really intimate. We have a Baroque set of musicians in our space also, so we have Baroque performances. They get grants, national grants, NEA grants, and they have performances. Some of the projects we do at the school. We do drumming workshops and drumming circles. Asher Delerme is amazing and brings in all sorts of people who are really interested in doing drumming and learning about culture. He teaches a lot as well as teaching people how to drum. He teaches them about what the drumming means and what the sounds mean, and you feel it in your chest as you're doing it. It's really very cool. And so one of the things that we've come up against is the very classic conundrum of successful art spaces. We have lost our lease. And so we are moving. And we're not sure where we're moving yet, but we need 30,000 square feet. And we'd like to be able to stay in Bridgeport. So one of the things that we've discovered is that when you are successful and you are showing people how cool a space can be, your landlord will very often say, this is worth a lot more than I thought it was. And so your rent is going to be raised by a phenomenal amount of money, and we can no longer afford to stay there. So I think that's a very interesting discussion, that arts move into a community looking for inexpensive, large spaces. You develop it, you create a following, you are helping community, you're expanding the reach and the reputation of your city, and then you kind of get knocked down. So that's what we're worried about now. But thank you. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Elisa Keogh, and I'm one of the artists at Firing Circuits Studios in Norwalk. And just to comment on Jane's last point about how artists move in and get the place going, and then they have to move out because the rents get raised and the landlords see it as a gold mine. That is so very true, and that's sort of traditionally what happens when artists move into abandoned spaces, and it's very sad. So anyway, I am Elisa Keogh, an artist at Firing Circuits. We occupy about 2 floors of an old factory, an old lace factory here in Norwalk. I've been there since 2009. When I first moved in, there were about 12 artists there altogether, and now we're at full capacity with 30 and there's a waiting list to get in. We're independent agents in that we all have our own leases and work independently, but we are a community, as Jane had said too. We come together, we have evenings together where we talk about what we do. We do little studio visits of each other's and where we learn about what everyone's up to. We inspire each other, we collaborate, and it's a wonderful community. So I'm just give you a little history of the building. This is it. It was built in 1912 as a lace factory for the Connecticut Lace Works that made fine quality Dresden lace. And there are two families that own the building, and these are them. Look like they're old family portraits, very proud outside their building. We occupy the two top floors of the space, and there's a wholesale florist underneath. They were in business until about the 1960s, I believe, from my research. And then when they closed their doors, other businesses came and went. There were a number of them until a business called Firing Circuits moved in, and they were manufacturers of electrical components. And they were there for, I guess, a decade or two until the 1990s. And they relocated to Shelton, Connecticut, where they still are. And they're called the Digatron Firing Circuits now. So anyway, 1990s they moved out. City zoning was such that the owners couldn't get new tenants to move in. There was regulations that stopped anybody new coming in once somebody had left. So the building became abandoned, became derelict, and that's where we come in. 10 years later, there was animals living in it. The windows are broken. Nobody would have wanted to move in except for artists. That's what we do. So we moved in. There was probably, within a couple of years, there was probably about 10 artists living there, not living there, working there. With their studios, they took over the existing built spaces that were the offices, cleaned it up, fixed the windows, did all the work on the building. Over the years, more and more artists came, and we built out into the huge open spaces and created more and more studios. So now we're up to 30. There's no more space to build. We're full. And this is what the building looks like today. And the Firing Circuits name is over the door. It's how we became Firing Circuits. And we occupy the top 2 floors. So we have renovated the space, cleaned it up. This is the second floor, one end of the second floor. All of these white walls are artist studios. This used to be one huge open space. The windows on the left and the right-hand side are those huge, big, like 5 foot by 8 feet leaded glass windows from the old factory, and the left side faces east and the right side faces west, and we've got beautiful light. We are a community, as I said. We really love getting together. There's so much to talk about. We host open studios once a year. Up until about 5 years ago, we actually couldn't have any events at the studios because of the existing zoning, and that's been changed now. And so we have open studios once a year. We have collectors, designers, art enthusiasts meander through our studios, ask us what we're up to, and it's a great way to get our name out there in the community. This is the gallery space on the second floor that we created for open studios, and also just so that we all have a space, a gallery space where we can exhibit our work. If other people are coming through, they can walk around like a real gallery and what everyone's everyone's up to. We also, many of us teach in our studios. We have painters who work in acrylic, oil, watercolor, and encaustic, which is hot wax. We have, that's the encaustic. We have printmakers, we have sculptors, we have photographers, we have mixed media artists. We have somebody representing pretty much any medium that you want to talk about. So we teach in our studios, we teach outside, we teach at art centers, we teach summer camp, we teach after-school programs, and this is a way that we really make a difference in the community, bringing arts out there. So that's the encaustic, sculpting with clay. We can't have a kiln, so we don't have any potters. And summer camp, photography. We've also taken part as a community, as a group, at the Norwalk Arts Festival, which is right over here at Lockwood Matthews Mansion every June. We have booths and we have live demonstrations throughout the weekend of what we're doing and information about us so people can come and visit. And we also set up some kind of a hands-on little community project so everyone can get involved. So that's Firing Circuits, and that's my presentation. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Mark McCready, and I am a co-director of the Loft Artists Association in Stamford. And it's an exciting year for the Loft Artists because we're in our 40th year. And so we're really eager to be celebrating that in 2018. We have been in 3 different locations in Stamford since the founding of the LAA in 1978, originally at the old Yale and Town factory in Stamford, which some of you may be aware has been developed now into apartment living in retail. We then occupied a building on Canal Street for a number of years and are currently in a building on Pacific Street. We have 14 studios and 2 small galleries on the 2nd floor of this building on Pacific Street. We have about 40 members. We try to maintain about 40 members, which is what we feel comfortable with, what we can accommodate. 14 of those members have studios, and then the rest of the members are what we often call associate members. Full participating members, but just members who don't have a studio. When I think of our mission, the mission of the LAA, and sort of boil it down into maybe 3 or 4 words, it's really all about bringing art into the community. And we do that in a number of ways. First and foremost, we do a number of exhibits. We really, what's great about the group is it really brings together a community of artists who work together and plan and execute exhibits in our 2 galleries. So we have that opportunity to really bring the public in. We plan an annual schedule of shows, gallery shows, member exhibits, as well as solo exhibits for our members. And we also do a number of collaborative exhibits with local organizations. We have a relationship with the Stanford Museum and Nature Center, so we do an annual event with the museum where they loan us an original painting, and our artists use that as inspiration. And so this is an example of an exhibit that was done around a Sargent painting that the museum loaned us. The actual painting comes to our building for the opening of the exhibit. And so, well, it's a wonderful way to inspire our artists. It's also a wonderful way to bring a little bit of what the Stanford Museum and Nature Center has to offer into the south end of Stanford. So that's one of our exciting relationships. We do an annual open studios as well, as part of our annual schedule, which is a weekend typically in November, where we invite the public in. This is a wonderful opportunity, as you've already heard from the other presenters here, to bring the public in, to not only let them see the work of artists, but also how artists work, to get into the studios, to talk to artists, to see artists working, to see a painting that might just be started, or an artist throwing something on the wheel in a ceramic studio. So it's a really exciting way to share what we do, and not just, to sort of demystify sort of art on the wall, to really bring it down to what it means to be a working artist, what a career artist might look like. And those are really wonderful experiences, I think, that are becoming more rare and unique. And so to be able to provide that, I think, is really a great thing. Just a couple of other images of that open studios. We get incredible support from the city of Stanford, as you can see here with the mayor, and really, which really helps us continue to be able to do what we do. The second part of our mission is really all about reaching out to the community. We do an annual, 2 Saturdays of annual drawing workshops, where we invite the public in, children and adults, to draw with us, either on the walls. We put a paper on the walls in the galleries, or in studios where often there are classes going on. Our artists will offer mini classes in their studios on those Saturday drawing workshop events. It's free and open to the public. It's not something you have to register for. You can just show up and draw. We also do a series of summer art workshops for children, where we get some funding for this. We raise money for this as well, and our artists are paid a small stipend to teach a workshop. And so we'll have a series of 8 Saturdays in the summer where we will invite children in. They register, they come in. We've had workshops in clay, we've had workshops in drawing, landscape painting, recycled robotics, where they build robots out of cardboard and all sorts of other wonderful materials. So it's a wonderful opportunity, again, for children to work with practicing artists and learn a little bit about what it means to be an artist, and also to be in a studio environment. So we're excited to be able to continue to offer that each summer. We do an annual collaborative with Laurel House in Stanford. Laurel House works with people on mental health recovery. We do an annual holiday exhibit with them. The Laurel House artists are invited in to share work that they've done. Often our artists will go to Laurel House and work with the Laurel House artists, and then we do this collaborative holiday show and exhibit with Laurel House. So it's another exciting opportunity for us to collaborate with another organization in the community. We also have, in the past few years, been working on some opportunities to bring our artists and our work into different parts of Stanford. So we formed a relationship with the Palace Theater and with the Bartlett Arboretum, which is what you see here, where we are able to put together a schedule of our artists to show in their gallery spaces. And so it's an opportunity for us to branch out of the South End, where most of our work is done, into other locations in Stanford, and share some of our work with a different group of people who might not get down to the South End. So we're excited to continue to develop these relationships as well. Some of our biggest challenges right now are, I think we all know, that it's just getting people into our gallery to see our work. We're artists, we love doing the work we do, but we also want to sell our work. And so we're constantly trying to figure out how to market ourselves. Our artists meet monthly. We have marketing people come in to help us strategize about how we can get more people into the building, how we can promote ourselves. Our last move to Pacific Street was a big one for us also from a financial point of view, because we, prior to that, our members were renting their studios directly from other landlords. We now lease this building, and we actually sublease the studios to all our members who have studios. So we are now sort of in a different kind of financial responsibility that we were not used to having to do. So we've had to be a little more aggressive about making sure we can actually rent these studios, because if we can't, the organization is paying for them. And also just be a little more aggressive in terms of how we manage our financial situation, which is always a challenge, an exciting one. And the other challenge we have is just, you know, which you've all already heard, is we're watching everything around us be torn down, and new buildings are going up, and we're in this old building wondering, okay, how much longer is this going to last? So it's always this uncertain future of how much longer will we be here. But it's exciting to be doing what we're doing, and also exciting to hear what others are doing and know that we're all in the same boat here, and really, really working hard to continue to bring art into the community. So thank you for your time.
Good. Thank you very much. Those were terrific presentations. And we have about 12 to 15 minutes here, so I want to kind of quickly try and do a rapid fire a little bit with the panelists and explore some different questions, and then we'll throw it open to the audience. Each of the panelists talked about very active programming in your different facilities. And you know, I was really amazed at how much you're doing, both within the facility and outside outreach. How does all that work? Is there an executive director? You know, is it volunteer? You know, are they paid? Because it's a lot of work from what I've heard. Jane, why don't we just go right down the line real quick?
Is this on? Okay. So most of our outreach is organized by me. I'm the managing director. I get a discount on my studio. I'm not a paid position, so it's something that I have always felt called to do as an artist, sharing my knowledge, especially my business skills. I worked in or had a retail store for 20 years, and I'm really familiar with marketing and promotion and events and all that stuff. And I just always feel like rising tides lift all boats. That's one of the mottos that I really live by, and that you have to reach the people behind you and pull them up with you. And so I just feel like I need to share that, and so I do.
Hi. We are not as organized as you are. There's a few of us that sort of band together and get things going, and we try and encourage everyone to participate when we're trying to get something going, whether it be open studios or be holding a figure drawing series or printmaking workshops or whatever else we do. It's really who in the community has the time and the energy and the resources to get something going, and then eventually everyone else bands on top with that.
We have two paid co-directors, I'm one of those, who are basically responsible for kind of holding everything together. We do raise money that's designated for our educational programs, so we are able to pay our artists a small amount of money to do the workshops, which helps. I mean, it's a little bit of an incentive. But we really run primarily on a volunteer basis. Most of our work in executing our shows and events really relies on our members volunteering. And that is a criteria for membership, is that our members are really told initially that part of signing on is to do some volunteer work.
Mark, let's stay with you. What do you think is the most kind of impactful community outreach that you do in terms of arts and culture to the community?
I think the workshops that we do, particularly our drawing workshops in March, where we have 3 hours of Saturday, and we could have 300 people in the building. for over a 3-hour period. Children drawing on the walls, adults drawing next to them, our artists in their studio teaching perspective to a group of people. And I think the energy and enthusiasm for just being part of an art experience and having people across all ranges of age and economic and social diversity and all kinds of wonderful things happening, that to me is really an exciting part of what we do. And one of the most exciting experiences is just to be there watching that.
Yeah, I would ditto that completely. It's when we have workshops and figure drawing and the stuff that is open to the public, either free or just at really cost to cover our expenses. I think that that's the most impactful thing. People come in, they meet other people who are like-minded, who want to learn different skills, and I agree that that's our most impactful way we affect the community. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to agree too, and it's things like the open studios, the one that's throughout the city, and the individual ones that we do, where I think we really help to change the narrative of what Bridgeport is. People who are not familiar with Bridgeport or know Bridgeport from the 80s or 90s have a very different thought of it than what it is, and what we hear all the time is how surprised everybody is at how cool it is and how many artists there are and how much potential there is. And so we kind of feel like that's where we're trying to make the biggest impact.
So let's stay with economic development for a second. You just mentioned that you think it's helpful for Bridgeport. So give us an example maybe of both the micro and the macro.
Well, so
That's a tough question.
That is a tough question. When we started our open studios, and I really, I'm a cheerleader, but I have a lot of people that help at the Nest. That we also have a requirement where people have to volunteer, and or some people are better at volunteering than others. So I have a core team that really helps with a lot of these things, and I spent a lot of time kind of rah-rahing everything. And when we first started doing open studios, we do 3 in the fall and 3 in the spring. I actually had to really have them take it on faith that people would show up, because it was just us. It's not the whole city. And so the first couple that we had, there were maybe 20 people that would show up, and now we average about 100, sometimes more, depending on the kinds of things that are going on. But the building that we share space with also has it's Black Rock Galleries. They're like an antiques dealer downstairs, and they notice a boost in people coming. We also made I made a piece of paper that lists all of the restaurants in our neighborhood with a map that shows people how to get there, because the idea is that if people are coming, they need to come for more than one reason. And that was what you were saying before. So when Pokemon was really big, we also listed the Pokestops that were nearby on our map, because we thought that would get the kids coming. They made me take it off because apparently people aren't playing Pokemon anymore. But those kinds of things, we're looking for those types of trends that would get people in. So I guess on a micro level, we're trying to help our neighborhood in that respect. And we've also done a lot of work to kind of fix up the outside of the building, which of course now makes us this giant target, but there's lots of development that's happening in our neighborhood. I'm not really sure, like on a macro level, what is happening. I just know we've got ripples. So we started out with people visiting mostly from the greater Bridgeport area, and now at our open studios, we are very typically getting people up from New York and Greenwich and Stamford, and down from Providence, which wasn't happening before. So those kinds of circles just expand the more you do. And the faith that people had in the idea is really borne out by the just making sure you keep doing it. You do it once and it doesn't work and you kind of give up, but if you do it 12 times in a row, it really grows and you start to get a reputation. So it's just maintaining the enthusiasm in the long term that's the hardest thing.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more question and then we'll open it to the audience. I was interested in understanding a little bit about what city leadership could do to be more supportive of the artists in your facilities and in the community. And city leadership I'll use very broadly, from the mayor to the planning department to economic development. So are there specific things that could be done that would support you and your facilities more?
I think we feel very supported by the city. I think when the mayor shows up at an open studios, that says a lot about how the city is supporting the arts, and we consistently have felt that support. We get some funding from the city cap grant as well, which funds a lot of the arts and cultural organizations in Stamford. So, you know, we feel, you know, that support, I think really, when it's there, it really can help empower the organization and really help sustain the organization, not only financially, but also just from the point of view of, you know, putting a stamp of approval on what we're doing and that it is an important part of the community. We've been in an area that has changed so much from what it was, and I think the arts and the fact that we're still there can be a really sort of grounding experience for an area in the city that's changed so much, and to sort of say to people, you know, there's still things here that we value. We haven't swept away the entire neighborhood and changed it over.
We're here in Norwalk, and I feel that we are also supported by the city. There was many years where our zoning was such that we weren't able to hold events, open studios, anything like that. And the city was really behind getting that zoning changed, so that did come about, and we were able to operate more as a traditional artist community, which we weren't able to do before. Of course, there's always more, but there's lots of other entities out there in the city, but I think we are supported, yeah.
Comments?
I think one thing that could be helpful is if that, you know, I started really putting myself out there and going to things like this and joining all sorts of different civic groups in the hopes of being able to build an advocacy team for our eventual relocation. And of course, the benefit is I love my city and I really want my city to succeed, but I didn't know who in the city I would contact if I needed help with promoting an event, or if I had problems with a zoning issue or something like that. I think when we invite people from the city to come, and many of them have never been to our facility before, they're always shocked at what they see. Oh, this is so much neater than I thought. I had no idea it looked like this one. So if there was a point person who made it their job to just reach out and say, I'm here, if you have questions about how I would coordinate, you know, whatever type of event or problem that you're encountering, I can help you figure out who you're supposed to talk to or what sort of thing needs to happen to make your life a little bit easier. That would be phenomenally helpful.
Terrific. We're going to throw it open to the audience. I think we have time for one question, maybe two. Way in the back, young lady.
Maybe it's not too quick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Up
in the front.
If you could just briefly talk about your relationship with the building owner or the property manager. I think these unique spaces are where there's massive infrastructure improvements needed, like AC and major duct work or something like that. But the artist communities really do need some creative freedom to be able to kind of move walls and paint things and have these rooms. But it sounds like there's a lot of movement between these different spaces and some tension potentially between the owner, landlord. So just briefly in terms of
so we ended up with a very adversarial relationship with our landlord. Every improvement that we've done on the building, we have paid for out of pocket ourselves. And so that money may never be made back. We've been there 7 years, and the plan had been to be there much longer. And at this point, his motivation is simply dollars. So he doesn't care that, you know, the arts improve the neighborhood or the community. Unlike Kim and Phil and other developers in Bridgeport who really appreciate that, the bottom line. And you know what, honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. It's his building. He gets to do whatever he wants. But we have, we organized a big project in the fall last year, or the winter last year. We took down a drop ceiling and then rented a sander and put 11 cans of polyurethane on the floor to improve the space. He's never, ever improved the space for us. And I think that's probably, I know other artist spaces have that type of experience, but we've really been out there on our own. And I know you end up with these very undeveloped spaces because they're cheap. So you have to make that choice. You're willing to do that to get the space that you want, that the public's comfortable to visit, that the artists want to rent, because you have to keep the spaces rented. We're a master lessor, like you're a master lessor, so you got to keep the spaces going. But I don't know. It's really hard. It's really hard.
David left the room, so I'm going to go one. Oh, there he is, way in the back. Okay.
Hi, I have a follow-up to that. So my name is Betsy Wilson. I'm a Norwalk resident, hometown New Canaan. I'm here with Pop-Up Park. We do a lot of placemaking, but I'm a real estate agent by trade. So something I found most interesting was when you mentioned the concept of value and adding value to the community, which ends up adding real value to the real estate of the community. And can you just speak to that sort of tension that ends up being created by your success?
Well, I think what happens is, artists move into abandoned, derelict spaces that are usually in areas that are economically poor, and they bring life to the area. They fix up a building. They work 24/7, so there's traffic coming and going all day long. And from that, then an area that could get worse and worse and worse because of the abandonment and improves. And so as that improves, then the buildings around it improve, and so on and so forth.
I would just add quickly that I think one of our biggest challenges and struggles is to continue to maintain a very high profile in the community so that we are valued, maybe not as valuable as the real estate is worth, but that we are valued as an integral part of the community that we're in. And that's a challenge, but I think if you can do that, then you're saying that this is equally as important as selling and developing all this property. And so that's what we work toward. It's not easy.
So on that note, which I think is a very positive note, we're going to end the program. I think the point there is I heard two things in this panel's program. One is there are some terrific champions here, and we need champions of arts and culture and people that are willing to work hard and volunteer and do all these things, like we saw with Theaster Gates, to really enrich the community and to make places better. And the other thing we just heard was art is an anchor institution, and we have to recognize it as that and invest in it. Thank you to our panelists, please.